Well, that was famous last words. That was famous last words on my part. I was trying to get OBS working, and OBS doesn't want to play ball with me. So now I've got to try and flip this screen for you, which I'd achieved successfully in OBS, and now this won't let me do it. So that's really, really super and helpful of it. Just bear with me 2 seconds. I'm going to try and sort myself out again because it wasn't playing ball with me. It really isn't. So I can just do it upside down if need be. That might have to be my best option, I think, because as I say, I'd flipped everything in OBS quite successfully, but now, unfortunately, okay, it's not going to let me do the same thing, I don't think, unless I can do something clever here. How very odd. It's really not very helpful, is it? All right, so what am I here to do? I am here to try and sort out some of my very, very old comic collection. Most of this stuff dates very much from my sort of teenage years comic collecting. If you have any problems hearing me or anything, do let me know in the chat, because I've got half an eye on the chat, but I've moved my keyboard away because I need space for my comics. So I thought I'd start off with the one that I use for the thumbnail, which is Judgment on Gotham. I'm not going to look at all of these. I'm just sort of seeing what I've got generally. But this is classic sort of Simon Bisley stuff. This is Judge Dredd versus Judge Death, but with Batman in the mix. So these crossovers happened quite a lot when I was into my sort of comics. You know, there are at least 3 of these, and I've got several of them actually. I think I should be able to find them all in the course of this session. You know what I'm hoping to do, because I've really forgotten most of this stuff that I've got, but I've gone through my American comics recently, so now I'm going to focus on the sort of the UK era ones. So that was Judgment on Gotham, and this tome is Batman Judge Dredd, a collected edition, Die Laughing, and this puts the Joker in the mix, of course. Or is it? I'm trying to think if this is actually that, or if it's a bit of a misnomer. I'm going to have to be careful with some of the content on this, because some of it's quite explicit, and the Bisley art is always beautiful, but you've got to be a little bit wary of it, I think, at times. Yeah, but we've definitely got Dredd, Anderson, Batman in the mix, and I say the sort of the Dark Judges as well, which I think was their sort of collective sort of noun, if you like. They were the Dark Judges when all said and done. So really great artwork on them, and I say you get a lot of comic there for your bucks back in the day. So I'll just keep flicking through. Now this one I actually picked up from eBay a little while ago. The reason I picked it up was because it didn't appear in a collected version of the Transformers comics that I had, because apparently Furman didn't like this as a title. He didn't like the storyline. Now I quite enjoyed it because I had the Brawn toy. So him getting the spotlight as a seemingly random little mini-bot was brilliant, I thought, at the time. And it echoed what was going on with Starscream at the time, which also evolved into its own storyline. So not collecting it seems rather odd to me, because you kind of miss some of the information and the sort of the backstory to these characters if you don't have it there in the collected edition. So that was kind of a weird choice to my mind. But anyway, trying to form multiple piles behind me now. Now here we have a classic thing, Transformers the movie. Now, in the UK comics, we got Target 2006, which quite frankly was better. It was certainly better. It was drawn better, if I might be so bold as to make that assertion. But largely because Jeff Senior did a lot of it. I've always liked his stuff. Now, the Vaults of Icon would like that one because that gives you all the action stories with tapes that you used to get back in the day. You got these little Ladybird books that came with tapes reading out the books. So that's a nice little bit of nostalgia for those who remember such things. But if you recall your Transformers the movie film, you will immediately see that is reminiscent of it. And there's Unicron, of course, getting into the mix. So it is it's a proper adaptation of it, which I haven't really sort of sat and read in many a long year. So I'm sure I would have picked it up at the time, but I actually picked this one up more recently. And there's a copy of the cover of one of the Transformers issues that was current at the time. So yeah, interesting to pick that up again. That was a class as a winter special. Because of course it was a strange one continuity wise, because it wouldn't really have probably fitted in with the UK comic continuity brilliantly, but Target 2006 did. I'm not quite sure when I got this 2000 AD poster prog, but that can it's advertising the Judge Dredd PlayStation game as well. There, it has. I think he and Rogue Trooper have had games. I'm not sure that anyone else has. But they obviously have. So this is gotta be careful with that one as well. Good old British comics. British comics, if you're unfamiliar, are generally speaking a little bit more explicit than their American counterparts of the time. I stand to be corrected on that. Yep, it wasn't kidding. It's definitely a poster prog. The size of that, brilliant. That's cool. Right, let's flip that away. See if I can figure out how to pull it up properly again another time. And that's a rather sad one. You've seen some videos about this today, actually. But that's it was a special 9/11 issue of, I think it was it Marvel's, was it Marvel or was it DC, or was it both? I think a lot of it was Marvel, actually. Yeah. Because that's a very interesting conundrum, of course. Because in that universe, you'd have expected the heroes to stop that sort of thing from happening, but sadly, not the real world. But there you go. Okay. Now these aren't strictly speak comics, but I just thought I'd throw them in for the sake of, because I need to sort these out as well. Just some things I picked up off eBay the other day because I thought they looked quite interesting. And obviously that's sci-fi now, but now is probably about 1980. So I just wanted to have a look at that to see if there are any sort of films that I think sound interesting and I might have missed. Another one, again, not a comic, but I picked that up the other day as well, so I want to have a look at that one in due course. I mean, I can't model worth a damn, but it's just might be interesting to look at for the Eagles various. This is one I picked up from Vintage Toys in Matlock, I think. And it's the annual Cinema and Television Fantasy Starburst. And of course, Starburst the magazine has been going on for years and years and years, far longer than I would have thought when I used to get it. And it used to be one of my sources for the fantasy genre, because we didn't have the internet in those days. But as you can see, this is covering stuff like the Enterprise and Star Destroyers and various other bits and bats. So it's an interesting one to sort of have a little flick through at some point. So that's on my to-read list, as is that one. And that's Starlog, which is a similar idea to Starburst. But I think Starlog was American, I think probably exclusively. But that's one I'm going to be having a look at in due course as well. As is a Jerry Anderson Stingray Cutaway book. In fact, it's not just Stingray, it's just Stingray on the front cover there. So that'll be quite an interesting one to have a look at as well. So let's get into this. Now, these boxes, everybody's for donkey's ears. I'll just, you can see, it's a trusty old comic. There we go. So what have we got in here? We've got Knights of Pendragon. Do you know what? I'm going to just see if I can can I flip this camera, because this is going to drive me nuts. Just bear with me a second. I'll just see if my system will let me do it whilst it's active. It probably won't. No, it won't let me do it. Image. No, I can't flip it. Oh, that is annoying. Okay. Well, let's just keep going. So yeah, I've got Knights of Pendragon. Now this is an interesting one because I wasn't sure if I still had these, but I've got issues 1, 2, which probably does still have a free poster inside. Yes, it does. I'm not going to attempt to. Oh no, I can remove it. Actually, it's floating free. Let's have a look. Scary stuff. There's a girl, Captain Britain. You see, this chap here is Captain Britain, who has, of course, now sort of appeared. Did they call it Captain Britain in the Doctor Strange film? Was she Captain Britain? Because it's not, obviously, it's not the male Captain Britain, but it's a similar sort of idea. So I got issues 1, 2, and 3 of that. Now I was amazed to see I still had this. If I've got the full run of the New Statesman, I will be amazed. Think of this as the boys of its era, kind of. The way I remember it, and it might be one of those ones that I remember differently when I actually come to read it as an older individual. It may not be as out there as I recall, but I remember it being dark as all heck when I first read it. So it deals with engineered superheroes, basically, who have a very sort of political agenda. But I just remember it being, it's a really good story with really sort of striking images, and it's just really well done. I remember cycling around North Wales like Billio trying to find it. Really hard to find. But it's from the 2000 AD stable, so it's from Fleetway. So it's kind of like Crisis in terms of its tone. We've got that. We've got number 2. Have I actually got all of them here, I wonder? No, I haven't. I go up to 3, and that's it. Now, I'm sure I did have all of them at some point. I can't recall if I sold some of them or not. Maybe I did. I've also got Third World War from this sort of era as well. And again, this was one of those sort of, as you can see there, it's for mature readers. And again, it's one of those ones where it's very, very rich in subtext. And it isn't the Third World War; it's a war in the Third World. You see, even the title it leans like that. It's just very, very cleverly done. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I have the full run of Third World War. At least of this collected version of it anyway. It came out in Crisis. It was serialized in Crisis, which was a 2000 AD offshoot. And I also have Judge Dredd Megazine as it first came out. This has some gorgeous graphics in it. You see 1990. So this was very sort of, obviously, extremely early 90s, really. But the British comics were getting that sort of that bit edgier. I mean, they've always been edgy. They've always been incredibly political when you actually look back at them. I've got issue 2. So I'll just crack through these. You can get these in collected forms now. Certainly the storylines from them. I'm just trying to figure out how best to regather these as I go. There's 3 there. A bit of Judge Death there. There's 4. Vaguely remember that guy. 5. As you can see, the artwork on these is really, really nice. No worries, Gareth. Sorry to hear you're not feeling brilliant. I mean, it's been that sort of weather today. I was going to be all productive today, and all I've really done is sort stuff out in the house because it was the sort of weather where you just don't want to leave the house. And so I didn't, quite frankly. I had enough food in, so I didn't need to escape. That was a good storyline, America. That's the one I've got in the collected version, actually. Now, I didn't get loads and loads of the Mega. In fact, I think I've only got the first... Oh, no, I did go beyond 10, actually. Looks like a Russian judge to me, that's 11. That was number 8, actually. Have I missed one, I wonder? I missed one at the time. I think, again, this was one of the ones where it was getting harder to track them down on a sort of regular basis. I didn't tend to get stuff ordered through because it was one of those quite funny things whereby my parents didn't really get what the content of comics was like. And the thing is, it was nothing particularly radical in these days, but it's the sort of thing where they probably might have had some issues with some of it. I don't know. But as it was, comics often fly under the parental radar, I find. You can get away with a lot when you're reading a comic that you wouldn't do if you got like a lad's mag or something, because it's not the same tone at all. But it's a similar sort of principle in terms of being for more mature people, Right, let's have a look. Now then. This probably starts taking me back now. Oh, wow, yeah, okay. Dick Tracy versus the Underworld. And of course, these started coming out around about the time of the film with Madonna and whatever his name was in them. And I think at the time, I probably thought they might have been important ones to have. Not so much. It's just one of those things. First of 3 and second of 3. I've no idea where 3 of 3 is, but I might have it. I don't know. Now, these were quite nice things to have. For some reason, I don't have number 1. But these are the complete Spider-Man. So there's the Doc Ock. You can tell this is a McFarlane era sort of Spider-Man because his webbing is always sort of massively overdrawn. So you've got the Hulk there. And I mean, the funny thing is that these sort of compendium issues are still on shelves today, I think. You still get a lot of sort of reprints of this stuff coming out, even now. There's Venom, you see, good old early Venom, or relatively early. Well, no, it probably would have been early Venom, actually. I'm wondering what... January 91. So not his first appearance. It's just a reprint appearance. But that is this is the sort of era that Venom did first crop up in. So for some reason I haven't got the first one. But that's not a bad selection in there. And that's relatively sensibly collected as well in terms of size and everything else. So I'm gonna pop those back away. I really hope that in one of these boxes there might be some more New Statesman, because I would love to have the full run of that. But that being said, I might actually have a full run in Crisis, because I have picked up some Crisis issues as late. So it's possible that I've got a full run, but don't know it at this point. I'll pop the Knights of Pendragon back in there as well. So that was a useful little insight into what I've got in that box, which is, as I say, the aim of the exercise here, really, just to give me an idea of what I've actually got, as much as anything else. Let's pop that away. Right, let's have a look. There's another box, before there are many boxes. I might not even get through all of these tonight, I don't know. I might not get through all of them. Let's have a look. Over there. Now I've boxed a bit smarter here because these will come out in the right order for you to actually see them. So this, I think, is just a shed load of 2000 AD single issues, or progs, as we like to call them. I have no idea what sort of range I'm looking at here. These plastic bags have also stood the test of time. These are my original plastic bags that I used to keep the comics in. So let's have a look. So that is prog 719, 718. So we're going down. So these are probably the last progs I picked up. Hello, Lobot and Spoon Glue and Josh. Thanks for joining me. I'm just having a little mooch through my old comic collection. So I'll just flick through these very quickly just so you can see the front covers. So yeah, we're still in the sort of the 700s. Now I started with 2000 AD in the sort of 580s, I think. That was kind of where it began for me. So these shiny covers weren't the covers that I had when I first joined, and it gradually sort of shifted in approach over time in terms of this little sort of ident. But it's always retained even when they went into the 2000s, it was still of course 2000 AD. But the covers are gorgeous. There's such incredible artwork in these comics, and such a huge range of characters and strips. It's never just Judge Dredd. That's not a thing. Rogue Trooper here. I love the reimagining of Rogue Trooper as well from this sort of time. It was great stuff. Now I don't even know exactly which year we're in here. 29th December 90. Okay, so yeah, so this must have been about the time that I started getting the weeklies. And again, this was probably the comic that I used to go out on my bike to get of a weekend, because obviously with it coming out weekly, you had to be on top of it, otherwise you'd miss the storylines. We've got PJ Maybe there. Remember him? Cy Judge Anderson. And now we're getting to 700s now, nearly. I have picked up the odd sort of floating issue of these recently, just because I saw them. So just because, really. But these are interesting as well for the times. You can see the sort of the adverts here. So like an Amstrad getting advertised on the back there from sort of the 90s, So it's quite funny like that. I get postcards on the front cover. That used to be a thing. Who are those guys? Oh, there's some random. What's that? 4 4. Who are these guys? The Harlem Heroes. They were the Harlem Heroes, yes. Okay. Oh, God, Nemesis the Warlock. I loved a bit of Nemesis. He was a very, very interesting character, Nemesis. I really like Nemesis. Oh, yes. Hooligan's haircut. I have no idea what was going on in that strip. He was hilarious. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. So those went as far back as 701. So knowing me, I was grouping them by 50s. And I don't know if I held on to all of those, or if I let some of them go at some point. At one point in time, my website did include a great big long list of everything that I had, but it's been many a long year since I looked at that or tried to update it, because I have carried on collecting comics since, but only on and off fashion. I mean, the Captain America run that I'm getting from Gareth at the moment, although that's nearly finished now, is the most conscientious I've been in decades about actually getting a series as it came out. So that's been quite a novelty for me, returning to that as a sort of a principle. Now these look like they're much older. Are they much older? Oh, no, they're not much older, but they do jump a bit. 668 on here. Let's have a look at these. Anyone else in the chat collect 2000 AD at any point? Hello, Barry, by the way. I haven't said hello to Barry. How's the weather keeping with everyone? Because I've just been hibernating this afternoon. There's been no point trying to get anywhere in particular. Yeah, 667. That's a great cover. That I like that cover. There's a style. What's the style of that? When you do that sort of multicolored tiling stuff, I can't remember. Oh, Chopper. The Super Surf 11, the end. Incredible art on that series. It really was. But I mean, just so many characters that they've just never, they've never done series of them. They've never done films apart from Dredd. I find it really bizarre, because it is such a deep trove of content that you could get from 2000 AD. I just can't think of anything else that's sort of, wanted to use it. There haven't been that many computer games. That's Ace Trucking there, isn't it? So Chopper's still going there. Oh, that's nearly topical. Have yourselves a scrotnig little Christmas and a Zarjazz New Year. Good old Tharg. The mighty Tharg. Where are we up to now? 658. Okay. Does anyone else read 2000 AD, or have you read 2000 AD at all? I mean, the thing is, if you're even vaguely into your comics in Britain, you can't really have avoided 2000 AD. That's another. Look at that. Spectrum! Sinclair ZX Spectrum action pack with light gun. Check that out. Now we know what to get the Vault Keeper for Christmas. There you go. Cool. Swamp Thing, only it isn't. It's Slan. Old one. I just mean Gotham is. Yeah, I've got, did you see that Obi-Rob Kenobi when I was showing it earlier? Because I have got that one. More Chopper there. Surf or Die. Zenith. Zenith was an interesting one as well, because again, it was a sort of a superhero strip, but except that they weren't so super within the pages of 2000 AD. Yes. I know he got a new Spectrum, but he just got an old Spectrum, didn't he? Really, it's just a Spectrum in a new packaging. I always remember loving that. Oh yeah, I remember why I like that, because it's got a really, really good strip in there of. I think Judge Dredd was being sort of reassessed, so he's doing this sort of practice combat run. But his sort of thoughts as he's doing it are quite interesting, because he realizes that he's getting that little bit older, a little bit slower. So it's kind of Dredd having a midlife crisis in effect. So it's interesting. So annoyingly, I'd got OBS all set up to do this stream, and then it decided it wasn't going to play with me. That's when I tried to start doing the stream. So I'm having to do everything upside down when I didn't really want to be doing everything upside down, but that's just life for you sometimes. I've actually got far more 2000 ADs left than I thought I did. I really thought I had fewer of my single issues, but apparently I've hung on to quite a few. And some of these have probably not seen the light of day since I last thought about doing this particular exercise. So now we're down to 649. Yeah, so as I thought, I went down to sort of 650, and now I'm into the earlier 600s now. That's that sort of slain artwork. It was always brilliant. Just look at that. Brilliant. That's almost sort of Game of Thrones when I stop and think about it. Look, actually, it's more primitive than that even. Got more Dredd on the cover. Cyrus Anderson. Prophesize. I see what they did there. Archie. Now, Archie's an interesting character. Archie's actually a very old UK comic character who appeared in the Zenith strips, but he's actually used to be on his own, sort of way back in the sort of maybe as far back as the 50s, perhaps. So again, it's just a treasure trove of sort of British, British sort of comic history, really, in terms of who they can get to reuse. Look at this thing. Oh yes, I remember that guy. Is it Tanner? I think his name was. It's weird how stuff comes back to you, isn't it? Judge Dredd, he's got a lot of throttle. And then Judge Anderson. More Dredd. More Dredd. He's trucking. Strontium Dog. Now, again, Strontium Dog, I'd love to see them make a film of. Because that's got to be one they could do a decent film of, surely to God, in this day and age. And they must be able to do a Strontium Dog of some sort, you would hope. But again, it's just one of those things where no one seems to have taking these licenses up. I don't know. Very, very odd. Thrill power, the capacity to induce sudden frenzied excitement or stimulation of pleasure circuits. From Beetlejuice's Thrill power, literally traumatic circuit spasm. That was always a running thing through 2000 AD. They had all these little catchphrases. This one reminds me of Space Above and Beyond a little bit, but it's actually quite interesting because it's an ambulance crew, but on a shuttle, sort of in a war zone. Basically, it's kind of like MASH, I suppose, in space. PJ maybe again. That's Zenith. Answers on a postcard as to why I cut that corner off. I'm not entirely sure I would have done that. That's not like me at all, so I'm not sure why that's missing. But anyway, perhaps there was a token there for something. In fact, I wonder if... Let me just test a theory here. No, it doesn't. I was trying to see if that was for a competition, because I did once win a competition. And I was able to go and play Quasar in London with the 2000 AD team. A very minor claim to fame, but I did do that with them at one point, and it could have been around then. But maybe that was a bit later actually. And there's Zenith on the front cover there of that one. And that should bring me to... oh, yeah, that's right. This is where I started selling them now, I remember. So some of the earliest ones I've got, I don't have anymore, because I think that was in a batch that I sold. Because it had some very famous Bisley covers, if I remember rightly, of... Now, is it Slan or Slain? I always thought it was Slain, but then I think it might be pronounced differently because it's a sort of Gaelic word, technically. Somebody in the chat can correct me on that if they know better. Right, let's package this away. Right. Yeah, and here we have, you can tell I thought this might be worth something one day because I've individually wrapped that. So that's Crisis #1. And you might be able to see just down there, it says Third World War there. So there's collected issues of Third World War and indeed New Statesman that I mentioned earlier appear in Crisis. So Crisis was the original source material for those. Now, I did catch a glimpse when I was looking through one of the other boxes of these. These are 2000 AD monthlies as they were then. And if you'd never read any 2000 AD before, they were a great on-ramp onto 2000 AD content. So a lot of storylines I caught up on through the 2000 AD monthly issues, and they were good value. You know, this is quite a lot of pages, so you could catch up quite rapidly. Then you got things like the sci-fi specials as well, and winter specials. So again, you know, this is a sort of glossy, semi-hardcover sort of. It's not an annual, but it's a little bit. You know, it's trying a bit harder than an average issue would, basically. So those are quite nice to have as sort of one-off examples of them trying harder. And that's another winter special there. Now this, wow, I've still got this. This was one of my very early Dredd-based pickups. Judge Dredd Mega Special. Now, when's this from? This is #1. This is the first Mega Special. It's 1988. So I was just into my teenage years. 75 pence. 75 pence. That is awesome. And it's a mix of black and white. And, you know, color was not the norm back then at all. So there's very, very few out and out color pages in here. In fact, I'm not even sure there's an entire strip in here that's in color at all. I think it's just the covers that are on one other page. I think that's it. So that's a really sort of interesting choice. Yeah, there's really very, very little. There's a few pages there that are coloured, but the rest are black and white. Another Judge Dredd Mega Special, particularly psychedelic looking one. Another Mega Special. Obviously, I found this is my Mega Special collection, clearly. Sci-Fi Special again. Mega Special number 491. So I think they were coming out annually. They're like annuals. But as I say, they're not sort of hardback annuals. They're just periodic yearly releases. So that's a nice sort of collection there as well. Let me get the box. I'll have to go and grab some more boxes. I've had more boxes. That was box 3. Perhaps I ought to upgrade these boxes at some point as well, because these are literally my original boxes that these were first stored in. They've stayed stored in ever since, bless them. Funny. Excuse me a second while I just swap some of these out. I'm going to end up boxing myself into this room if I'm not careful. Oh. Right, let's have a look at these. See if we can get these the right way up. That's the right way up for you, isn't it? That's good. Now, interestingly, this is not one I had originally. This is after my 2000 AD time, but I think for some reason I must have just got a batch off eBay at some point. But it's quite interesting in the sense that it's a sort of a time jump. Yes, this is 1996. So this is 6 years after I stopped, but 2000 AD is still going, of course. You know, it just never stops, basically, which is, I don't know how many years it has actually been going now. I can't remember when it first came out, but the characters remain very, very, sort of stable. You keep seeing the same characters. In fact, this is the Mega. Hang on, that's normal 2000 AD. This is Megazine 2000 AD, which is still going again. So I'm not quite sure what happened, whether or not. Or in fact, maybe the classic is the equivalent of monthly, because that would be an old strip at this point. So I'm slightly confused now as to whether or not one of these is whether or not they changed to Megazine, and whether a lot of these classics are just collected ones. Yeah, I think they must be collected ones, and maybe these are the monthlies of their time then. Now here we go. This is one of the ones I was looking for. So this is Batman Judge Dredd: The Ultimate Riddle. So this is a small format one, which is lurking in amongst my my large format ones. But that is probably the third and final one of the sort of the crossover stories that I hadn't come across to this point. So I wonder if this was always released in a smaller format, or because in fact it only has a USA and Canada price tag on it. So maybe I just picked up an American version of it because it features DC characters. I don't know, but the artwork in those is always brilliant because they're it doesn't actually say it's Bisley, but it's very reminiscent of his work. But okay, that's that. Now that is interesting. So that's Vendetta in Gotham. So that might mean perhaps does anyone know how many crossovers there were? Were there 4 Batman Judge Dredd crossovers? Do we think? Because I think I'm pretty sure that's the 4th I've come across this evening. So is this just? I think this is just Batman and Judge Dredd. It doesn't throw anyone else into the mix. So it's just a sort of fairly straightforward one. That one. In fact, I think it's one I think that might even be the first one where they first meet each other and they set up future interactions. I think it might be that. It might be that. Let's have a look. So we're into my Prog 742. Where did I get to last time? Was it about 619, wasn't it? So I'm just thinking that this might not be... maybe I did carry on for a little bit longer than I thought I did. Am I going up or down in terms of prog numbers here? 737. So I'm going down. So this was August 91. So yeah, so that's another year's worth of progs that I've got there then. Oh yes, I remember them. Indigo Prime. I think they were in Tyranny Rex's strip originally, weren't they? No, in fact, I have 2 Indigo Prime issues. That's curious. Mean Machine Angel. Murphy's Law. They had spud guns, as I recall, if I remember rightly. Robo Hunter, wow, that's an old one as well. That's an old strip. Nemesis the Warlock. I remember this run, actually. That had some great stuff in it, this run. More Nemesis. It's about the only time, actually, I think I caught Nemesis when it was actually live. The rest of the time, I came across Nemesis when it was collected. And again, Halo Jones. I'm not sure I ever caught her when she was actually coming out as such. I've got all my stuff still connected to the covers because I'm good like that. I like to keep my issues in original form if at all possible. Camouflaged 2000 AD. Special low visibility prog apparently. Funny. 722. Rogue Trooper. That was a new Rogue Trooper. That was when they reinvented him somewhat. He had basically a reboot of Rogue Trooper, actually, I guess. I've come back to that one. Okay, so that was it. So relatively small pile there of those. When did that go to? 720. So it feels like I could combine that with another collection in another box, and it probably would be fairly complete, but that'll do for now. I'm really just having a quick look through before I put these all away again, because they've been floating around the house for so long now. I just need to do something with them. I might leave those out separately because I can combine my my Dreads and my Batmans together in one place, so that I know I've got them in one place. It makes sense. As much as this collection does make sense these days. God, these boxes are so old. that's my original writing from when these boxes were first created back in the day. This way around, I think, for you guys. Assuming they stay that way around, of course. So this looks like my monthlies. Yeah. I mean, the monthlies were printed on quite sort of low-grade paper, kind of on purpose, I guess, because obviously they're trying to release fairly chunky stuff at a reasonable price. So didn't really have a problem with that at all, because I was there for the stories, not for the print quality, So we've got sort of June 1990 there. So this is definitely one of my sort of prime 2000 AD collecting periods. This, I mean, I must have collected it for a solid 3-4 years, maybe. It's probably only second to Transformers in terms of how long I kept it going for, really. Because it was just a sheer variety of stories and characters and everything else that you got. It was just, if you were at all into your science fiction and your comics, then this was definitely the best place to be finding it in the UK, really. That's a Strontium Dog there. And he was one of the, I think I'll get to it eventually, but he was one of the first 2000 AD characters I think I read, even before Judge and this is it, actually. This if I remember rightly, and I think I do, this is the first 2000 AD I ever picked up. So 2000 AD monthly, August 1988. So it would have been, I can even tell you where it was. So August 1988, number 35. And this would have been summer holidays. And I wasn't a teenager at this point. I was nearly a teenager, but not quite. And it was in Asda in Kimnell Bay, which is still there, I believe, to this day. But I'm reasonably confident that that is where I picked this up from, because it had quite a big selection of comics at some point at one location in the store. And this just caught my eye for whatever reason, and I picked it up and away I went. And as I say, that was my transition into more mature stuff away from Transformers at that point, I think. So I don't know what Transformers were doing that around that time, but I wouldn't be surprised if my last Transformers comic was about the same time as this one came out, because I think that's when I transitioned. So that, you see, is 89, so that would have been later. But these were definitely amongst my earliest 2000 AD monthlies, without a doubt. And again, had Halo Jones, who's quite an interesting character. It's quite a confusing strip for me to read sort of part way through, but some interesting ideas, like that dolphin there. Remember that dolphin in Johnny Mnemonic? Well, that probably came first. It's very, very interesting. You just sort of start questioning which of these ideas actually came first in the end. Got another just dreadlessly huge gun there. Johnny Alpha. Sam Slade of the Robo Hunter. Just, you can see I used to get these pretty religiously as well. We can see we're now into 1990 there. So already it's been nearly 2 years since I've been collecting these. So these are ones that I would also make sure that I picked up, because at the time when I started reading 2008, it had already been running for a lot of years. So they had a large back catalogue of content even before, way before I sort of joined the party. Now what about? Oh, that's another bunch of issues here. That's interesting. 625. Okay, let's have a look at what I've got here then. Let's have a look. So, can you see that? Yes, 625. This comic is illegal under Mega City 1 law. Perp. Okay. Now this is interesting. This one, I think ironically, I picked this up again recently, thinking I didn't still have it or might not have it. So I just remember it being really distinctive because it's Dredd, but not in his normal uniform. So it's Dredd going after a rogue judge, and there he is there in his sort of his different outfit. So that was a really, really good strip actually, and I just remember that. I always remember that cover very clearly. There's Tyranny Rex. I always remember this cover as well. I don't know quite why. So where are we now? We are 621, 8th of April, 89. So this is getting back towards when I probably first started getting the weeklies, because I realised that they existed, really. Because I've just been getting monthlies up to this point. Were there any comics that anyone else collected on a sort of regular basis, or am I unusual in the fact that I've still got all these after this long? Feral. He was a great character, Feral. Very interesting character. A mutant, strontium dog related. 12 Zarjad's years. So 2000 he was 12 at this point, so he must have started in about 77, because there are 89 issues now. So just the sort of tail end of the 80s here. Road Trooper. I mean, I wouldn't like to guess how often I've read my way through some of these issues. This is a really interesting one as well, because again, this is a Japanese judge. So it's a judge from a different jurisdiction, but really, really great outfit, great uniform for him. It's really, really cool. Slipstream, look at that. I've got that on video downstairs. That featured Mark Hamill in a very rare. In fact, you can see it down there. Mark Hamill, Bob Peck, Bill Paxton as well. I always forget that about that. Kitty Aldridge and Eleanor David, apparently, and Ben Kingsley. Good Lord. There's some really good people in it, Slipstream. Completely random film, but good people. Oh, there he is with his the Japanese bike. That's very cool. Along came a spider. Arachnophobes need not apply. So it looks like I might have some of my 500s left. That's incredible. 602. I think that's old. I think that's old style Rogue Trooper, that as well. It's not even, that's not the reimagining. There's Nemesis. Yep, 600. There you go. Prog 600. Wow. Only 580 to go till 2000 AD, and it did keep going before it. Cosmic Toyman. I really need to delve into some 2000 AD. Been saying this. Yeah, there's quite a lot to delve into as well. You've got loads of really good collected issues on your benches, on your tables outside the store. So read some of that. If you're feeling poorly, stay at home and read some of that. And yeah, these must be going right into my first ones. So this is November 88. So you can see I started getting it just after I picked up that monthly. So I'm sure I got my timeline right. Got Rogue Trooper. Tyranny Rex. That was a really confusing strip to read at that point in time when I was just trying to get used to this sort of more mature form of comic. Yeah, I remember that very clearly. There's Chopper. Early Chopper. Not the earliest Chopper, but early-ish Chopper. So actually, that doesn't go as far back as my first issue. That's 594. But those are very, very... That is the beginning of my 2000 AD collection, without a doubt. Because I can nearly carbon date it by having seen that monthly in there, and having that date on it. Yeah, wow. Well, like you, Gareth, I could spend many a long hour just sitting and rereading a lot of this stuff because it would take me straight back. But the weird thing is I think I was reading this at that time where it just writes itself into your memory. You know, it's just part of my long-term memory is all of this stuff. And it was, it was British. That was the thing. It was great because you were reading a comic and it was mature, well-constructed science fiction. And it was British. So, it was just, I wasn't reading, a massive amount of sort of Spider-Man and Superman or anything like that because they hadn't become mainstream on UK shelves at that point. So really, you couldn't really read that unless you had a specialist store really near to you that could supply you with that. Look at that. Look, I kept the badge on it. The X-Files #1, linked in with manga as well. Brilliant. First issue. You see, and then when they said things like collector's item, I believed them. I have no idea what that's worth now with the badge. I should probably go and investigate that, shouldn't I? Or someone else can. Someone in the chat, go and see how much that's worth, please. Oh, wow. Now then. Oh no, this has got Rushton on it. No, this isn't. These aren't ones that I had. I have no idea why I picked those up, unless they were someone else's. And I just thought my uncle gave these to me, but maybe these aren't the ones I'm thinking of. So I have no idea what where they've come from. But those are proper old school Marvel UK. 5 pence for a comic. There you go. I don't even know what year these are. Number 21, week ending February 24th, 1973. Wow. And number 18, week ending February 3rd, 1973. Gosh. I believe that they've identified the first appearance of Wolverine in a single issue. About thousands of these floppy issues in stock. So yeah, you would have, because there probably are about that many now. Now this I picked up as soon as I saw it. Because you didn't often see Dark Horse stuff reproduced, and this is before I think Dark Horse started doing it in earnest, or before Dark Horse, or particularly before I knew of Dark Horse. That's only August 1991. I'm surprised I picked that up, but I must have watched the first film by that point. I can't put that on screen because that's a little bit gory, probably. Yep, so is that bit. I can't do it. But it's I mean, it's exactly what you might expect. It's Terminators going back in time, and Rebels going back in time as well to try and stop them, and so on. So, but I'm pretty sure that was Dark Horse. It's advertising Toxic in the back as well. Oh, and Aliens as well. Actually, that's interesting. So actually, no, maybe this wasn't that. So, yeah, it must have been into the year somebody started reprinting. In fact, let me just find out who it was. And it says not suitable for young children on the front of it as well. So they did put an advisory on the front, which was sensible. So this was being published monthly by Trident Comics Limited. Trident Comics. So I'll keep an eye open for that imprint as I go through. Now Meltdown, yeah. So this has stuff like Nightbreed and all sorts of stuff in it. I don't think I even picked up that many of them, but it had Akira in it as well. So they were serializing Akira in that. And we are getting into that time now in the early 90s where manga and anime is just starting to be a thing. Is that the first issue? Yes, that's number 1. There you go. August 1991. First hot issue, Akira, Nightbreed, The Last American. Oh, and Havoc again. Havoc's being advertised on the back. So again, doing Marvel reprints. But, well, I'll say Marvel. Is it Marvel? Yeah, Deathlock was Marvel. I'm not sure Robocop was Marvel. Maybe it was. But that's why. That's where I remember reading the Robocop strips from then. It was Havoc. I remember Deathlock very, very clearly. But I hadn't remembered the other one. So this is, yeah. And in fact, the Akira's in color, which is rather nice. And again, I'm not sure, I can't remember when exactly I saw or first heard of Akira. So not quite sure what made me get that, but maybe it was the Akira thing that I'd heard of. Oh God, I got strip as well. Strip there. Now this again was another. There were loads of these coming out in the early 90s. I'd forgotten just how many there were in the early 90s, but they were constantly putting out things like this. This I think is where I came back to Death's Head, because if I'm right in the page, yep, I am right. So this is this is serializing Death's Head, the body in question, which I loved as a book, and it was this incredible sort of A4 size graphic novel you could get of this storyline, and it was a beautiful book. And for some bizarre reason, I must have sold it at some point, but I've got the reprint of it in a collected edition. Beyond Time itself, yes. Timey-wimey, lots of timey-wimey stuff happening, yes. So it's just a great strip. But as I say, all these sort of random stuff getting reprinted in strip. But there was Strip, there was Toxic, there was Havoc, there was Meltdown, all these new titles coming out. But they were primarily reprinting stuff. They weren't doing new stuff. So again, there's Strip with Death's Head cover. I had no idea I still had these, but it's lovely that I have, because it would have been a shame if I'd completely lost these. Grim Toad, Wolfram, and Combat Wombat. But a lot of these are actually escapees from the Transformers comics and various other places. It's just, and there is Overkill. Now that's funny because I've picked up some Overkills recently. I wonder if that's going to fill in any of my gaps. I wondered if I was going to find any. I'm not going to go and find them tonight, because I will do a separate video on Overkill at some point, simply because I've got a lot of them. But I did want to find these because I was hoping that I still had some. Now, as you can see, the 90s were, let's just say they enjoyed the ladies, shall we? We'll leave it at that. But it's like, there's a lot of gratuitously thin armor around. Let's just put it that way. But again, you see, interestingly, Overkill, as random as it was, also featured Wolverine. So It's first New Look issue, not the first issue, but a New Look issue. Okay. But this is Death's Head 2, of course, not Death's Head 1. So I think Overkill ran for quite a long time as well, actually, longer than I would have thought. But I'm loving the fact that I've still got those strips and the meltdowns here as well, and the Terminator as well. I mean, obviously they're only reprints, but it's all good stuff. And I've got the X-Files #1 with my badge attached to it, even though it's a British comic, which probably makes it worth virtually nothing. But there you go. Okay, let's pop these back away again. Probably trying to destroy them in the process. I mean, I shudder to think how much shelf space you'd actually need to try and put up the sort of all the collected 2000 AD releases that they've put out, because they have done it. I think they've actually sort of set out at various points in time to collect everything that 2000 AD has ever put out, and that's just so much stuff. It's just crazy. Right, I've just got to go for another little jaunt to get some more supplies. Bear with me. Just about making it back without destroying anything or myself in the process. Let's have a look here. Yes. Now, this may not be all of these actually, but did anyone follow this? Because I love this as well. Now, this is a special issue for Alien 3, but again, now, is this Trident? Oh, no, this is Dark Horse Comics International. This is actually Dark Horse doing Dark Horse, but it's an international offshoot of Dark Horse. So what you end up with is another Alien 3 movie special. Number 2, number 3. Okay, so we're three. I've got 3 Alien 3 specials. Haha! I see what they did there. If they stopped at number 3, okay. But they also did all these. So these were basically reprinting the Dark Horse Aliens series, and it was they were terrific strips. I loved them, and again, I went through a proper Aliens phase thanks to this slot, because I had picked up a very, very few Dark Horse American format Aliens comics to this point, I think, but these guys just started wholesale reprinting a lot of the storylines of Dark Horse Aliens. And Dark Horse were also doing sort of, the Terminator and the Predator lines as well, of course. So there was a lot of sort of crossover in that sense. But they did sort of, technical specs of the drop ships and all that sort of stuff that I really enjoy. And the covers were original, I think. So you got a lot of content from following this particular series of comics. Just some really, really great covers. I'm not even sure. I think they started to come out in another volume. This is probably, this is volume 2, number 12. So it's June 93. So these I was getting a little bit after my 2000 AD sort of run, probably. This is probably about the time when I would have started dropping off in terms of consistently collecting comics, because I was going to be going off to uni. So these would be the last ones I was really getting when I was still zipping around on my bike trying to find stuff. But again, it's the sort of stuff you wonder how I was allowed to walk out the store with some of this, because the covers look properly gruesome in some places. But no one questions it if it's in the comics section. That's the funny thing. I'll have a look at these as well, because these have probably got some. I mean, I've got a fair few graphic novels that collect these sequences, but probably not all of them, I suspect. It looks like I collected most of volume 2 in this box from the looks of it. Exclusive news on Aliens vs Predator the movie. Was it really that far back? I don't think it was. I bet they were thinking about doing it a lot at the time, but obviously we didn't get it until a bit later, I don't think. I can't remember. When was the first Aliens vs Predator movie, I wonder? I'm really not sure now. Yeah, that's volume 2, number 1. So that's all the second volume of this. I think I know where the first volume is, but it isn't up here in these boxes, unfortunately. So you're not gonna see that. But that does tell me where that little lot is anyway. So that's good. Let's have a look at this box now. And this, oops, oh dear, that cover's gone. That's not ideal. These are all reprints though, but so this is London Editions magazines, and that was number 5 for some reason, not number 1. That's okay. So these were DC Action. Now this was one of my early introductions to the DC universe. Largely, I think. Funny format. It's quite a sort of glossy, almost plasticky front cover, but then the actual quality of the sort of the print stock inside is just what you might expect, really. So this is suggested for mature readers, but it is just DC stuff. Bi-monthly. So there weren't a lot of these at all. Now, hang on, is bi-monthly the same as fortnightly? It was bi-monthly once every 2 months. I always get that confused. So Animal Man. Animal Man's a funny one because he's a sort of quite an offbeat character, even for DC. You don't hear a lot about him, and he's not one of the sort of more famous ones. So his strips were quite quirky in terms of their writing and their general approach to life. So here, of course, we're starting to get into the kind of more the traditional Justice League stuff, but they will keep reprinting Animal Man. And that's number 3. Do we have number 1? Yes, we do. We have number 1, and it's got a badge. Number 1 with a badge. There you go. Oh, we've got the Creeper as well. It was the first time I'd come across the Creeper, I think. So he was another wacky old character. And these are the versions of the heroes that I remember because this was the time I was reading it. So for me, Starfire looks like that. That is Starfire from my point of view. Oh yeah, Zones. Gosh, I've forgotten about Zones. So again, this is another suggested for mature readers one. But maybe even more so. So we've got it's got the Shadow, it's got H.R. Geiger article there, Swamp Thing. And again, first time I think I'd come across Swamp Thing. Paul Gambaccini chats about comics and collecting. That ages it. Good Lord. Number 3. I'm trying to see if it's actually got a date on it, but it hasn't very obviously. 1990 apparently. That was so when was that then? A little bit after my 2000 AD started, I think. So this maybe perhaps made me realize that there were sort of other things out there beyond what I was used to. But again, it's just a sort of another sort of DC reprints kind of compendium, basically. But as I say, there were so many of these in the early 90s. It's just crazy. Reprinting just went off the charts. And now this one hasn't got the free badge. Batman Monthly number 1, 75 pence. When was this? 1988. I bet I picked that up. What bets? I picked that up at exactly the same time I got my first 2000 AD monthly, and I branched onto 2000 AD. I would give reasonable odds on that, but I remember the storylines in here because I remember one of these deals with Batman saying that if you keep your head, you can swim in quicksand. I'm sure that's in one of these issues here. And Penguin as well. This is London Editions magazines again. So they're just keeping it sort of, doing these big format reprints of Batman stories, basically. Oh, yeah, I've got a really good selection in here, actually. I didn't realize I'd hung on to quite so many of these. And again, DC, Shockwave, reprints of mature reader stuff. Animal Man, Black Orchid, Hellblazer. I mean, presumably some of these must have fallen over. So this is 1991. So they must have just kept going, sort of, chucking these reprints out time and time again, trying to get some sort of traction with them. And it clearly just isn't really working. But even Animal Man's back again. But, again, for me, being into my science fiction, it was all good stuff. It was like, it's a sort of thing that I would lap up. If they produced it, I would quite happily get it because there wasn't anything else like it. Now, why I've got Classic 2000 AD in here, I have no idea. Maybe I ran out of space in another box, so I just chucked a few of those in there. It's entirely possible. I might see if I can find a better home for those, I think. But anyway, that's nearly the final box. This has been quite successful. It's been partly successful, partly frustrating in some respects, because there were some things I wish I did have a full run of, but it may be that they are still somewhere else. It's possible. It's possible. Let's just get the last box. You can just about still get in and out of the room. It's a bit tricky. Now, so we've got some more of this. Okay, maybe this would be a good place to hide these ones then. Those there, because they will fit in there. That's like, I probably got that because it's got Strontium Dog on the cover. I probably decided I wanted to grab that for no other reason than that. Now that I remember coming out in the weekly issues when I was getting them. So maybe I got rid of that now then. Gareth, wake up. Look who it is. Look, it's Godzilla. Manga Mania. Now this was really interesting because this just wasn't a thing until this got released. This is Volume 1, Number 1, July 1993. So this is very late for me picking up sort of comic stuff, but this is probably one of the first times that manga in comic form, obviously because it's manga, actually started getting released in the UK. Now, this also, of course, coincided with the release of things like Otsikotochi, Legend of the Demon Womb, which was as you may recall, if you were around at that sort of time, was renowned for being a bit of a video nasty. But, it was just anime. I mean, it's just of its nature. But there's a whole sling of titles there. But the funny thing was, I'd already picked up some of these. Well, I say not picked them up, but I'd seen them in rental stores, probably a lot earlier than they started getting sold by Manga Entertainment. But they were, of course, the Manga Entertainment were the main purveyors of anime here for quite a long time. So a lot of sort of, obviously black and white reprints here. Now, we saw Akira in Meltdown earlier, of course. So it wasn't actually perhaps the first time that had a reprint in this country, but this was the first really focused manga magazine that started to come out. Now, I think there was there Animerica as well? I think Animerica was also a thing, wasn't it? But I don't know whether or not I'm misremembering that might have been US rather than UK. So we've got more Godzilla strips being reproduced in there. We've got some more nice covers with Godzilla on. Now, who are they? Were they the Bubble? What are they? It's Dark Horse stuff. Is it? Now, see, I probably wouldn't have known who Dark Horse were at this point. But presumably some of this has got to be original manga, though, isn't it? Or do you mean the English language version of it is Dark Horse? Because I could understand, obviously, the translation. Now, who are these guys? That was Appleseed. Yeah, Bubblegum Crisis. That's the one I was thinking of. I think Robotech's in here as well. Now, I wonder if I picked up on that at the time. Would I have known what it was at that point? I wonder. I'm not sure. I probably would have recognised it, but I'm not even sure if I'd seen Macross at that point. Street Fighter. Brilliant. Crying Free Man. Kira Appleseed. I remember enjoying Appleseed, actually. Appleseed was cool. Look. Eee. Japan's Giant Robots Power Up. Gundam. There you go. Macross 2. There we go. Nice. Gareth, if you want me to bring that in for you to have a look at, let me know. But it's seriously out of date now. Oh god, Total Carnage. Wow. That's just advertising some of the other titles that are out. So there's the Aliens that I was showing you before. Manga Mania here. Total Carnage I remember as well. That had the mask in it. And Jurassic Park. Wow. Comic Miniatures. Comic Miniatures are advertised in everything I see. It's weird. I probably appreciate some of this more now, I think. I don't know. Oh, this looks like Appleseed, actually, what I'm looking at here. There he is. Look. There's your lad. It looks like he's having a bit of a snooze there. Manga. That's coming apart slightly, but not to worry. Wicked City. Okay. There's a lot of manga videos being advertised in there, of course, inevitably. So Godzilla comics are originally Dark Horse comics. They weren't manga. But guessing that you... I suspect Dark Horse would have got the original manga and added English speech bubbles to it and then released it. That's an adaptation of Return of Godzilla. I can tell from a single panel. Woo, get you, sir. I would expect no less from you, sir. Yeah, there's Macross 2. So Macross 2 was the first Robotech I think I properly saw because I had it on video. I remember that very, very clearly. Yeah, it's cool. It's good, and as I say, it was very, very, very unusual in the UK at that particular point in time to be able to get hold of that sort of stuff. I mean, in any way, shape, or form. And then another random Judge Dredd the Megazine. All these random Judge Dredd Megazines just floating about the place in my collection for no apparent reason. So I think that's it. So thank you for bearing with me as I ploughed through those. There's definitely some little bit of reorganization I can do off the back of that. But I'm amazed my 2000 AD run is still quite that complete. There's definitely a chunk missing. I definitely must have got rid of a particular chunk, perhaps with a particular storyline in it or something. That's often what happened with 2000 AD. Somebody probably asked me for a chunk of issues. Probably, in fact, it was probably this. It was probably the Simon Bisley ones. It was the Bisley issues that probably went because they've always had a certain sort of special following, I think, because of the artwork style and everything else. So that would make sense, actually. Wow, 1 hour and 20 minutes. I really need to figure out why OBS wasn't connecting with YouTube because that was annoying to have it all set up right and then have to scramble at the last minute. So I'm sorry I started a few minutes late. But do like and subscribe as ever. I'm continuing with my Trek Toys playlist at the moment. That's the main thing that I've got sort of in the works because I've got shed loads of things to work through on that. But I do need to intersperse it with some other stuff. Is there anything anyone wants to chat about for 5 minutes? I am available, but I'm going to rest my voice for a moment. It's still blowing a gale. My windows sound like they're trying to cave in at the moment. All the snow's been washed away at this point, so that's not a problem anymore, at least. Tomorrow I might even venture to the shops. There's always that possibility. Right. I'm going to call it a night there, ladies and gentlemen. Because I don't have anything more to do with this now, apart from carry on sorting it and pack some of it away. Because I'm just trying to I've used today as a bit of a tidying day. Night, Gareth. Night, LB, Joshi, Obi, et al. If anyone else is still present. Night, all.